You doubt yourself not because you are weak, but because you have been trained to believe weakness is your natural state. From the moment you were born, the world handed you a script: follow the rules, seek approval, avoid mistakes, and beg for permission. And so you carry chains on your mind. But here is the truth the Stoics discovered centuries ago: self-doubt is not reality, it is illusion, a parasite feeding on your unchallenged thoughts. And when you rise against it with the brutal clarity of Stoic law, doubt shatters like glass under a hammer. The Stoics didn't whisper their truths, they carved them into the bedrock of discipline, of resilience, of unshakable mind. And if you want to rewire your life, you must take these laws into your bloodstream, breathe them into your soul, and never let them go. This is not philosophy for the classroom, this is a weapon for war, the war against your inner hesitation. So listen carefully. These 7 laws are not gentle. They are not polite. They are brutal, because only brutality can silence the endless noise of fear inside you. But before we dive into these 7 brutal Stoic laws that will rewire your mind forever, I need to ask you for something important. This channel is not just mine, it's ours. Every like, every subscribe is fuel that keeps this movement alive, that pushes these messages out to the people who need them most. My goal is simple: 10,000 likes on this video. Not for vanity, but for growth, for reach, for impact. When you hit that like button, you are not just supporting me, you are carrying this fire into the world, helping another soul break free from the prison of self-doubt. So if these words resonate with you, pause for a second, click that like, and subscribe, because together, we are building a community of unshakable minds. And now, let us begin with the first brutal Stoic law. And the first law is this: what you cannot control, you must release. What you can control, you must master. The disease of self-doubt begins when you obsess over forces beyond your control. You worry about opinions, about outcomes, about recognition. You spend hours tormenting yourself over whether you will succeed, whether they will approve, whether life will bend in your favor. But Epictetus stood in chains as a slave and still declared, some things are in our control and others not. This is law. When you allow your energy to scatter toward the uncontrollable, you fuel self-doubt. You cannot control the wind, but you can raise your sails. You cannot dictate the thoughts of others, but you can sharpen your own mind. The brutal law of control is the first weapon against self-doubt because it drags your focus. Imagine every ounce of energy you waste worrying about rejection redirected into perfecting your craft. Imagine every drop of fear about failure poured into preparation. The Stoic does not ask, will I win? The Stoic asks, did I act with full command over myself? And when that answer is yes, self-doubt suffocates, because there is no space for fear where mastery lives. Self-doubt thrives in comfort. When life is too easy, when you hide in routine, when you refuse to test yourself, doubt whispers, are you strong enough? Are you ready? And the truth is, you are not. That is why the second Stoic law is merciless: seek voluntary hardship, or you will remain a slave to your fears. Seneca, who lived surrounded by luxury, commanded himself to sleep on the ground, to eat coarse bread, to strip away comfort and ask, is this what I feared? You doubt your ability because you never confront the storms until they come crashing. But the Stoic trains in rain, in cold, in hunger, in rejection, so when fate delivers pain, it feels familiar. Self-doubt dies the moment you face suffering willingly, because you prove to yourself that you do not break. Think of the soldier who trains with weights heavier than his weapon. When battle begins, his hands feel light. This is the Stoic mind, it seeks weight so that life feels light. And when you live this law, when you fast for discipline, when you wake early, when you endure voluntary struggle, you carve steel into your spirit. Fear has no grip on the man who has already endured his own chosen fire. The third law strikes at the heart of every insecure soul: detach from the poison of opinion. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, yet in his private writings he reminded himself daily, it is not what they say, but what I do that matters. Self-doubt is not born from reality, it is born from the imagined chorus of voices that you let live inside your skull. Do they dictate your worth? Do they feed your soul? The answer is no. So why worship them? The brutal law of detachment commands you to sever the leash of external opinion. You cannot live like a free man while chained to the applause or ridicule of the crowd. You must anchor your worth not in their shifting voices but in your unshakable principles. Imagine a mountain, winds scream, storms strike, yet the mountain does not bow, it remains, unmoved, because it answers to no storm. That is you when you follow this law. When others mock you, you smile. When they praise you, you smile. Because your value no longer bends with their words. And when you detach, when you silence the jury in your head, self-doubt collapses. It cannot survive in the man who no longer kneels to the judgment of the world. The fourth Stoic law is merciless in its demand, yet liberating in its power. Every obstacle must be fuel, not excuse. Self-doubt whispers when you see barriers, when you hit walls, when life says, no, but Marcus Aurelius declared, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. This is not poetry, it is a strategy for war. The weak man curses obstacles, the doubter retreats, the fragile soul collapses. But the Stoic warrior burns obstacles into firewood for his own furnace. Rejection. It sharpens his persistence. Failure. It teaches his hands new strength. Betrayal. It trains his heart to endure. To the Stoic, nothing is wasted, not even pain. You doubt yourself because you misinterpret hardship as evidence of inadequacy. But hardship is proof that life has chosen you for growth. The fire does not consume you, it tempers you like steel. Imagine if every time life struck you, you used it as instead, you whisper, good. Another stone to step upon. Self-doubt dies when obstacles become your allies. The fifth law is the harshest discipline of all, master yourself, or be mastered by your emotions. The man ruled by his emotions is a slave to chaos. Anger drags him, fear paralyzes him, desire blinds him, and in every storm of feeling, self-doubt creeps in. The Stoics' new emotions cannot be destroyed, but they can be ruled. Epictetus reminded his students, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Discipline is the governor of the soul, the shield against mental storms. When fear rises, discipline speaks louder. When laziness whispers, discipline commands. You doubt yourself when you confuse emotion with truth, when you think fear means you are unready, when you think sadness means you are broken. But emotions are weather, temporary, fleeting. Discipline is climate, steady, chosen, eternal. The Stoic rises not because he feels like rising, but because rising is his law. The world respects not the man who is carried by feelings, but the man who carries himself above them. Discipline gives birth to self-trust, because every time you command yourself and obey, you prove that you are sovereign over your life. Doubt cannot survive in the kingdom of a disciplined man. The sixth law is the most feared, yet the most liberating, memento mori, remember that you will die. Self-doubt thrives because you act as if you have forever, as if time will stretch its arms to wait for your hesitation. But Marcus Aurelius cut through illusion when he wrote, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think. Death is not a distant guest, it walks beside you daily. And when you realize this, hesitation dies. The man who remembers death wastes no breath. Imagine how small fear looks when weighed against the fact that every heartbeat is borrowed. To live without remembering death is to drift in fog, but to live with it burning in your chest is to walk with urgency, clarity, and courage. Self-doubt withers under the shadow of mortality, because you no longer ask, am I good enough? You ask instead, will I waste this precious day? And the answer becomes action, not hesitation. To follow this law is to cut the rope of fear with the blade of mortality. You do not delay. You do not shrink. You live as though death waits at your door, because it does. The seventh and final law is the crown of Stoicism, live by unbreakable principles, not by fleeting desires. Self-doubt thrives in the man who drifts, who bends with temptation, who betrays himself to chase approval. But the Stoic forges a code and refuses to bend, even when storms rage. Epictetus declared, "Decide who you want to be, and then act accordingly, always." Doubt attacks the man with no anchor, because he has no truth to return to. But when you write your principles into stone, honor, discipline, courage, truth, you can stand unshaken in any storm. The man of principle does not ask, "What if I fail?" He asks, "Did I act according to my code?" And when the answer is yes, there is no room for doubt, only certainty. The crowd may mock, success may delay, fortune may crumble, but the man of principle remains victorious, because he never betrayed himself. Self-doubt cannot touch the soul that is welded to principle. The unprincipled life is a leaf blown by every gust of fear. The principled life is a fortress. You must decide, what laws will you live by? What virtues will you defend even if the world burns? When you decide, when you commit, when you weld your identity to unbreakable principles, you become untouchable. Doubt shatters, now you stand at the edge of transformation. You have walked through 7 brutal Stoic laws, each one a hammer that smashes chains, each one a torch that sets fire to doubt. Think of what you hold now. Law 1 taught you to focus only on what you can control, to master yourself instead of wasting your life on shadows. Law 2 demanded voluntary hardship, commanding you to choose discomfort so that no storm could ever break you. Law 3 severed the leash of opinion, reminding you that no voice outside your own should ever decide your worth. Law 4 turned obstacles into fire, transforming every failure into a stepping stone, every rejection into iron for your soul. Law 5 crowned discipline as your master, declaring that emotions are weather but discipline is eternal. Law 6 placed death on your shoulder, whispering, "Memento mori, act now, for tomorrow is not promised." And Law 7 sealed it all with unbreakable principles, a code of honor that makes you untouchable, unshaken, unstoppable. Together, these laws are not just philosophy, they are a war plan, a code for destroying self-doubt at its root. Look at your life now with new eyes. Every moment you hesitate, you betray yourself. Every second you kneel to fear, you waste the one treasure that can never return, time. The Stoics were not men of comfort, not men of excuses, they were men who lived on the battlefield of existence, armed with clarity, discipline, and unshakable mind. And you? You were not born to be paralyzed by hesitation. You were not born to live in the shadows of what if. You were born to act. To rise. To burn so brightly that even death itself must pause to witness your fire. Self-doubt is not a destiny, it is a disease. And you now hold the cure. These 7 laws are the medicine. The only question that remains is whether you will swallow it. Whether you will take these truths and carve them into your life, day after day, until you become. So here is the final command, stop waiting. Stop asking if you are ready. Stop listening to the phantom voices in your head. Choose one law today, just one, and live it with absolute brutality. Master what you control. Endure hardship. Detach from opinion. Turn obstacles into fire. Rule your emotions with discipline. Remember death. Forge principles. Do not attempt them all at once, be ruthless with one, and the others will follow. Doubt dies not in words, but in action. Every time you obey these laws, every time you act despite hesitation, every time you keep your word to yourself, the chains of self-doubt crack and fall. Until one day, you wake up and realize there is no hesitation left inside you, only certainty, only clarity, only fire. This is the Stoic mind. This is the rewired self. And this is who you were always meant to become. If this message lit a fire inside you, don't let it fade. These 7 brutal Stoic laws are not just words, they are weapons. But weapons are useless if you leave them on the ground. So take them. Wield them. Live them. And if you felt even a spark of strength in these words, prove it now. Smash that like button, because every strike tells the algorithm to send this fire to another soul who needs it. Subscribe, because this is only the beginning. Together, we are building a brotherhood, a legion